Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast.
This is episode 242. This week, we have Victor over the hill, DNC's on the way to DC, upfront casket pricing, off we go into the wild Me Too movement, conservatives dropping dead, and is that a nipple in my cappuccino? I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in this endeavor, writer, journalist, dog mom, and a dog mom again, Jessica Salagi.
Yeah, I just tried to steal my thunder.
I'm a horrible person.
Yeah, it's okay. I got a new puppy.
She's a cute little thing.
It was one of those things where I had been looking, but then I was like not sure if I was ready. So I would make appointments to go see puppies or rescue dogs, and then I'd cancel because you know that, like, I mean, if you go visit the dog, whether it's a puppy or a rescue, there's like a 98% chance you're going to leave with the dog, right? So like I didn't go until I was absolutely sure. And then on like the morning of, I was like, I think I'm going to cancel because I don't want to go. I don't want to, like, maybe this isn't the right time, blah, 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 blah. Well, I went, and after like 30 seconds, I was like, okay, you can come home with me. So she did. Her name was Penny, but now it's Sydney.
Well, you ever go buy a new car?
On the pennies. What?
You ever buy a new car and they take you and send you with the car and say, we'll worry about paperwork later, and they just say, go ahead and drive it for the weekend, whatever?
Yes.
That's called puppy dogging.
For sure.
Because if you take that car home, you're buying it.
So they did that to me with the car I have now. It wasn't the exact car, but it was pretty darn close. And they were like, can you come back tomorrow? And I was like, no, because Eric and I had to drive to Valdosta for something that day. And they're like, oh, well, just take the car. Whenever you can get back this way is fine. And I was like, you're okay with me just like racking up miles on it? Oh, yeah, for sure. Just take it. See if you like. We want to make sure you like it before.
Yep. They puppy dogged you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When we got Allie, one of the most effective things a shelter can do, and most awful things too, is they put her execution date up on the website.
Brutal.
And like, if you don't come get her by Wednesday, the dog's not going to be here. So that was kind of, they're going to kill her. So she comes driving back from Noonan with a dog in her lap.
Yep.
And she was a good dog for nearly 2 decades.
But Stanley's adjusting. He's doing, very Stanley things. They enjoy playing, but we're working through some, growing pains of sharing and making sure we don't always have the spotlight. So it's entertaining.
Yeah, and most importantly, have you picked out their Halloween costumes?
No, I decided because she's kind of like in that. So she's not a puppy. She's 9 months old, so she's small, but she's not 8 weeks small. And so since she's kind of in that awkward, like floppy stage, and just her learning and all that, I figured we would just, celebrate Halloween with like an extra treat and then pick it up full speed next year.
Well, the nice thing about where you live is you don't have trick-or-treaters.
Correct.
And I know that sounds awful, but when you have a new dog and you're trying to acclimate her to the house, having groups of kids every 3 minutes knocking on the door, I'm sure it would be disturbing to Stanley too, because he doesn't even like the people next door building a house.
No.
Let alone in his yard.
He learned that from Stella. She thought that anyone in like a 5-mile radius was on our property.
Yeah. Yeah, all I have to do is pee on it. It's mine.
Right. But puppies make you happy, so.
They do. She's a cute thing. I guess she's not going to grow up anymore, but she'll grow out. She'll fill in a little bit.
She'll grow a little bit taller. She's a little bit short right now, but I actually don't know how much. I think she's like 40 pounds maybe, and they said her parents were decent size, so she'll probably be between 55 and 65 pounds, which is about what Shady and Stella were. Stanley, he's a bigger boy. He's a little tank, but on a side note really quick, I did look at this brown lab puppy that was just precious, and I was like about to go get her. And they texted me and were like, well, just to let you know, like, we think she's going to be a pretty big girl. Her dad is 105 pounds and her mom is 100 pounds. And I was like, they sent me a picture of it. It looked like a darn moose. And I was like, you know, like, I mean, I have a lot of room to roam here. We have a great yard, but my house is not terribly big. And I know how it felt with 3 dogs. And I can't imagine having like a Great Dane sized Labrador. And as goofy and as much as they bounce, I was like, sorry, I can't have a 100-pound lab. Sorry.
Yeah, I've got a neighbor with a couple Mastiffs.
Oh my goodness.
And I was talking to him, and I said, Craig, that's like a full-grown man taking a dump in your yard 3 times a day.
Ew, Dave.
These damn dogs are 200 pounds.
They're huge dogs, for sure.
They're sweet. Like, the male will come up, if he's outside the fence when I get home, he'll come up and just lean on me and say hello. Which 200 pounds right at your knees and hips. It's like, easy boy, you're going to kill me.
That's funny.
So anyway, we have guilty as hell. Sheriff Victor Hill found guilty of 6 of 7 counts by a jury of his peers last week.
So, of course, we know that the trial was, I think, a little more than a week. And there were lots of witnesses, lots of people subpoenaed. But they found him guilty of violating the rights of 6 of the 7 detainees. So they didn't believe one person, which I think is interesting because it's not like this was a civil suit where somebody was trying to get cash or something. Like, I don't know why somebody would, and of course, maybe it could be they just couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. But, you know, this was the whole thing about him putting people in the restraint chairs when they didn't have a reason to be there or they were no longer a threat. And they'd leave them there for extended amount of time and they use it as punishment, like not just because someone was out of control or anything like that.
Yeah, he had gotten so casual about it. He was like, put him in the chair.
Right. And this was a federal case, and something about the feds a lot of times is that their cases are a lot more sound before they head to trial. Usually their cases are pretty locked up and ready to go when somebody's charged or indicted. So I'm not really all that surprised that
we talked we've talked on the show before that USDAs are USAs are very concerned with batting average.
Right.
They don't keep their jobs if they have people walking away exonerated.
That's right.
I'm surprised that Hill actually went to trial with it. I mean, you have to know.
Don't you think it's the same thing as like Jim Beck though? Like if you know you're going to be hammered, you might as well. I mean, I guess maybe here's the thing about the feds is they sentence on a point system, and if you go to trial, they don't consider it punishment. If you go to trial, what they do is if you take a plea early on, they call it like a bonus for early resolution. Which is basically saying, if you don't, we're going to add a point on, we're going to punish you on the back end, but such as government. But I mean, if you're guilty, wouldn't you take your risk at maybe getting not guilty as 6 or getting, not guilty on 1? Like that's one less offense he'll have to serve time for.
Yeah.
It's not like the state level where the entire sentence will be completely left up to the judge. Like there will be a guideline.
Well, the thing with Beck was insurance for his wife, wasn't it?
Well,
if the longer he held out, he could keep that state insurance plan.
Well, correct, right, yeah. The fact that he didn't, because he didn't want to step down. He wanted to run out the clock as long as he could.
Right, and I think we talked about it last week that there's a movement to suspend pay while these elected officials are suspended.
Right, because he knew he did it, and he could have pled guilty, but he wanted to do what he needed to do, which, so be it. Here we are. But
Victor Hill's a turd. He always has been.
Well, and I mean, he could have been charged for so many more things. I mean, and on the state level, like ethics issues and sending out messages on.
Our attorney general does not charge for ethics.
He doesn't charge for anything. I mean, he leaves it up to a grand jury and does the path of least resistance. But I'm not surprised that the jury did what they did. They said that the judge polled the jury of 9 men and 3 women, and that they all confirmed that they were unanimous, and that prosecutors did not provide direct proof that Hill was the one that gave the order to restrain the suspect on the charge that was not guilty, like they did all of the others, where I guess they could prove it, or through testimony. There wasn't anybody, but
I'd like to know what's happening to those deputies. Look, you know when something's wrong.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And just because the sheriff tells you to do something doesn't make it right.
Well, I would venture to say that in this case, because they needed those people so badly to convict him, and he so badly needed to be removed from office, I mean, we all hate it, but I would imagine that in exchange for their testimony, there was nothing done to them.
Yeah, it's just like we were talking about the prisons with, they're a body. They're a post-certified body. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're post-certified. These could just be jail deputies. I say just. It's a horrible job. I mean, I make no bones about that. It's a tough job. But I don't think you have to be post-certified to work in the jail side. But they're hard to find.
You get a cert. You don't have to. You're post-certified, but it's as a jail corrections.
As a jailer.
Yeah. It's a different.
Yeah, it shows you how much I know about working in law enforcement.
Well, I mean, I only know it because of all the records I've requested about it over the years.
Well, you also, studied local government in college. I mean,
yeah, but college didn't teach me anything.
Taught you how to spend money.
No, I was born with that. But yes, I mean, with Victor Hill, I mean, I think that anyone who, I don't know. I would like to think, I know better because I've seen it happen too many times, but I would like to think that the people who have worked for Victor Hill will have a harder time getting jobs somewhere else. Like that, in a perfect world, that would be the end result, that they were given preferential treatment in the court system for their actions in exchange for their testimony, which did in fact secure this conviction. I think we would all be okay with that. Will they probably go work somewhere else? Probably. At the same time, I think most of us would like to think that these people, as long as they're not directed again to put someone in a chair or to abuse somebody, that they won't. And, I mean, like Hill sent a fugitive squad to go try to arrest a man on a misdemeanor. That was one of the indictment stipulations. And the guy hired a lawyer, he cooperated with jail staff, and he'll still put him in a restraint chair. That's like true vindictiveness. I don't think those people should have done it. I don't think they should have committed things that they, like you said, they know are unlawful. But we also have to recognize that there's like a population, there's a faction of the population that thinks like, well, I don't know what else I could do. Like it would never cross their mind that they should quit on principle. Like, and that sounds pathetic to say, but like, I don't know how many times that there are people who are genuinely that level of the company man that they will just do it because they're at work and they were told to. They don't.
Well, it's not totally dissimilar from what was the prison in Iraq, where you get this group mentality where everybody's doing it. Mm-hmm. So it's a horrible miscarriage of the public trust. You know, we expect our sheriff's departments to hold up their end, to do their job, to protect. You know, it's his, and we said it when the story first dropped. What was that, a year ago? When we first started covering the story, his job is not to punish. His job is to detain. And he decided to take it upon himself to punish. So anyway, we have a second woman coming out with accusations of an abortion paid for by Herschel Walker.
Yeah, I begrudgingly put this on the outline because we haven't talked about the first lady that has made these accusations, and there's a number of reasons that I have not suggested putting it on there, or that I haven't written about it on the Georgia Virtue, and that's because I've genuinely wondered if people care. And I mean that from the standpoint of, like, there are some Republicans who are like, well, this is just the Democrat machine trying to influence the election. And then the Democrats are like, oh, they're not against what happened. They just want to say that it's hypocritical. And then there's the independents and the libertarians in the middle who are like, screw everybody. Like, I don't know. So, I mean, I don't know, like, I just don't know how much people care. But the second one coming out on the 26th, which was Wednesday, when I saw the first story, the first woman that came out, I was like, why would a woman want to have this conversation? Like, my understanding is that abortion is, like, deeply personal. And I think that I think it's a good thing that there are women who are strong enough to talk about it, because I think it offers insight on, like, the mental health side of things, and it offers insight on guilt and regret, or the life-saving side of things, or whatever like, there's lots of reasons that it's good that women are strong, but a lot for most people, it's a deeply personal, private thing. And so for me, I just can't comprehend wanting to interject that into any type of political race, let alone one with an ex-football player who people worship.
Yeah, I don't really get it either, other than that there's a point of desperation in the Democratic Party as a whole going in, you know, as the show drops, will be 8 days from the general. I think there's a point of desperation. I don't know. I don't know if the accusations are true or not, and I don't know that's going to matter.
Well, how could we ever know if they're true or not? I mean, unless you video recorded him saying what. I mean, and these were 2 decades ago, not or 3 decades ago in one of them. But it's not like the world today where you could just have an app that records.
Yeah, but where would your opinion be on it if he came out and said this is absolutely true, and I feel bad about it every day, and my opinion of abortion in general has evolved in the last 2 decades.
So to me, it wouldn't matter if he was sorry and his opinion had evolved. Abortion is not. I
shouldn't say you personally. I'm talking about.
Sure, no. But I mean, I've been thinking about it. It's fine because I've been thinking about it. But I guess for me, abortion has never been my issue, like my poll issue. It's never been what drives me to. I didn't care that Brad Raffensperger was endorsed by like Georgia Right to Life. That's not my thing. Proper role of government is, and so it can kind of get messed up in that. But I guess if every single thing that has come out about him and it's all been true, first of all, this sounds super flippant, but I would say that how is he very different from most elected officials? Because I mean, there are elected officials who do this while in office because they got a staffer pregnant or a campaign worker or something like that. But also, like, is this not the kind of behavior, if it is true, is this not the kind of behavior that we've come to expect from people who are in power? And therefore, I would just call it all even and zero and get back to the issues of what I think they're going to vote on. When it comes to the Senate, like, I'm even more removed from it because I don't think that the Senate is capable of being efficient. I don't believe we should be electing our senators. There's all kinds of ideological issues with it. So, like, for me, even more, I'm like, ugh, whatever, I don't even care. But if I was the person who still thought that our senators were not birds or different wings on the same bird, it wouldn't matter to me because I would still want to go back to the issues, not like they all have these demons and skeletons. They're just different demons and skeletons and alive boys and dead girls.
You know, and that's something that I think is changing in our society. Used to be you could keep your skeletons in the closet. Mm-hmm. If the AP didn't report it or your local newspaper didn't report it, it didn't happen. And pretty soon we're going to get to the point where we are completely numb to this stuff coming out because it's just going to be, you know, the best quote, I don't know if it's a direct quote, but the best way I heard this handled with George W. Bush was he said, "I'm not going to talk about anything before the age of 30. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a falling down alcoholic. Yeah, he was.
He's not now.
No, exactly. So, but he went ahead and hung that lantern on his front porch and said, "Look, first, I'm not going to talk about the first 30 years. I was who I was, and I with Laura's help, I changed, and that was it. And you know, I think that's a good way of handling it. As far as Herschel goes, I think there'll be a couple more October surprises. I think. Do you think that race gets settled on Tuesday?
No, I don't. And no,
I don't. You think Chase Oliver is going to pull enough to force it into runoff?
Mm-hmm. I do. But I think, you know,
and look, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, obviously, I don't want to spend the money, but for the legitimacy of freedom-minded people to start seeing that they have impacts and start being treated properly. I was glad to see Shane Hazel on the debate stage with Abrams and with Kemp. I thought it was appropriate to have him up there.
How about Patricia Murphy from the AJC wrote an op-ed about how Shane Hazel siphoned time away from Kemp and Abrams. First of all, you can't siphon time away from somebody who is allowed to be there. It's not like he was in the crowd yelling his answers and they had to wait for him. Like that was the time he was allotted. But her argument was that libertarians shouldn't have been allowed on the debate stage.
And that's God, that's so elitist. And trust me, that's coming from an elitist. Mm-hmm. God, that's just so elitist. The concept that people have no historical frame of reference for things anymore. We didn't always have Republicans and Democrats. These parties evolved and changed over 250 years. So these parties really changed, and it wasn't always Republicans, Democrats. I mean, we had a Greenback Party for a while, and things like that. Which the Democrats, I guess, have become the Greenback Party. That was the party that just said we could get through the Depression, get out of the Depression by printing more money. But the debate, the senatorial debate, Herschel did better than I expected. Warnock came off shifty, but the second debate where Herschel didn't show up, I kind of felt like, and I don't think this was a good look for Warnock, was he wasn't giving Chase any jabs. He was going past him and to hit Walker. and I thought that showed more of a disrespect for libertarians in general and for Chase Oliver.
Well, yeah, it says like you're not worth my time to even challenge your views. And it also hurts libertarians from the standpoint of like it perpetuates the narrative that libertarians are just Democrat plants. You know? Well,
with Oliver, he admittedly was an Obama Democrat.
Sure.
And I think that's okay. And I think it's okay to as he got older, as he matured, he found that liberty was more important than party. And I think that's I'd love to have him on the show and have him tell us about, you've talked about your evolution into libertarianism and what was the catalyst for you. And we asked Shane Hazel when he was on the show the same thing. It's always interesting to hear these guys. Shane Hazel, who would have been considered a Republican, moved to the Libertarian Party, and we have Chase Oliver, who was absolutely a Democrat, moved to the Libertarian Party, and what that catalyst was, what really opened their eyes. And Hazel, the reason they're mad at Hazel is he is so good. Mm-hmm. He is. He also has the freedom of knowing he's not going to win. So so when he tells you something about his belief, it's 100% his belief. That's not a focus group that sat down with the Hazel team and come up with a stance. If you ask Shane, where do you stand on this? He will tell you straight out, honestly, this is where I stand on it.
Right.
And that's a freedom that you have when in boxing it's called a puncher's chance. Is you just go out swinging. So I thought, like I said, I thought Warnock was very dismissive of Oliver, and I also think that if you're going to run for office, you should be willing to debate.
Absolutely.
And I actually enjoy it. But anyway, do you think it flows down the ticket? I mean, if there's a lot of people out there. Kemp is so far ahead right now, according to polls. Mm-hmm. Does that pull Walker through?
I don't know. Herschel was polling 2 points behind Warnock last week, and that was obviously there's a margin of error. I'm not sure. Terrible, but I don't know what the margin of error was on that poll. But the thing that still perplexes me is how Kemp is so far ahead of Abrams, but Warnock and Herschel are closer. Obviously, I think that speaks to people who are just kind of grossed out by both candidates, and I think that's a completely understandable position just because, I mean, the ads have been terrible, and you're talking about people who had some controversy about them before they were ever even in political office. So I think that does account for some of it, that they are willing. There are some protest votes that are going to go to Oliver, but the spread between the two races is what's perplexing to me. But I feel like Kemp could win outright.
You say I'm going to vote for Kemp at the top? Well, I don't even know I can't remember. I think Senator was actually the top of the ticket when I voted the other day.
Mm-hmm. There's probably people who are going to show up to vote just for Brian Kemp.
And look, I threw in some protest votes. There are some local politicians around here who I just don't like, mm-hmm. And I wrote in anybody but, because they didn't have if they were running unopposed, anybody but. And there were some libertarians that got votes out of me because I don't like who the Republicans selected to be the nominee. I wasn't going to flip over and vote Democrat, but I'm certainly not. There's people like Raffensperger. He's done nothing to earn my vote.
Right.
So he didn't get a vote from me. I mean, he did nothing to earn it.
The only thing that's going to be interesting is, people were like, oh my gosh, the Senate went to, they rejected Loeffler and Purdue, and the Senate, Georgia is blue, Georgia's purple, Georgia's blue. I never bought into that. I think that was just a victim of the circumstances. We had a soon-to-be ex-president who was telling people not to vote for our senators, and then he said, okay, actually you should, and they weren't that great anyway, and there were a lot of other factors that played into Purdue and Loeffler's defeat. And so I think Georgia is still red, honestly. But I don't know if it's red. I don't know if it's red enough to overcome the machine that is Warnock. I think he's spending $4.2 million a week on ads.
Yeah. And like I said before, it's good media. Mm-hmm. It's good media. All right. The feds, the FTC, and death care providers.
Yeah. Okay. So saw this Wednesday night, I guess. First of all, the Federal Trade Commission is now referring to funeral homes as death care providers. Whatever. But apparently, I didn't know this because I have not planned a ton of funerals, but under a 1984 law, there is or regulation, excuse me. It is not a law. It is a bureaucratic regulation that the FTC enacted in 1984 to require that if a person showed up in person or called a funeral home, that funeral home would have to disclose their prices so that people could compare. Not the proper role of government. So, of course, some almost 40 years later, we are watching our federal government catch up to the times, and they're saying, well, we need to modernize that and include that they post stuff on the internet. People need to be able to, they're not prohibited from doing it now. They can if they want to. But it's the justification for it that is really gross to me. The chair, Lena Khan, she wrote a statement last week and said, stories persist about consumers spending hours trying to answer the most basic questions about how much it will cost to bury their loved ones. And that just really rubbed me the wrong way because, there's so many, this sounds cold, but your loved one aren't we told to plan? You're supposed to plan. You're supposed to have plans.
Yeah. I've got a friend who owns a funeral home or runs it. It's his family's funeral home. It's a tough business. When I say tough, is you are dealing with a lot of people at their worst moment. Especially,
and a lot of times they have no idea what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and to have somebody, and Jason's his name, he's a super, super good guy. He'll talk about it. He says he has a calming influence. He really does. He's totally opposite of my personality. But he's very even keel, calm. Like I said, really good guy. But he, between him and his uncle that I've talked to, I've done work for, is understanding the process that goes through with it and what services they provide. And of course, you can spend as much or as little as you want. Mm-hmm. You don't, and they'll tell you don't have to have a funeral in a funeral home. You can go put a picture up at a bar and
right.
do it there. It's. And they'll tell you, we offer cremation services, and we'll take care of. You can be as involved as you want to. Like some people want to be there when the body's cremated and all that stuff. I think, but yeah, to a certain degree, it is a racket where they tell you, "Want to be much more comfortable in this casket? We're going to stick in the ground."
Well, sure, but that's business. That's like when you go to the car lot and they're like, "Oh, do you like this?" You go to look at a used car, and they're showing you a new car. That's just business. But what really bothers me is this is part of a larger issue about whether or not internet is a right, because of the way that we have things like for access, because what happens is they're going to say, well, this has to be available online. Like so many other things that we require to be online. And then we say, well, it's so much easier to access things online instead of calling. And so why should people who can't afford internet be, why should they have to give up more time to use the phone to call? Everyone should get free internet. I mean, that was like that was the argument during COVID. And we see it, I mean, hospital billing prices, so many things now, we're just mandating it. And then we're actually pretending like it's a disadvantage to have to use the phone. When it's not.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are 10,000 variables. Dr. Cool's pricing is not on the internet.
Neither is our advertising pricing.
Yeah, there's 10,000 variables that go into it.
Right.
There are really simple change outs if we're bidding something, or there's, like I said, 10,000 things that can affect the price. So plus with inflation, that aluminum casket may cost more tomorrow than it does today with inflation. So as soon as you put that on the internet, it's outdated.
Well, so that's the other thing is like, so do they just put prices on, or do they have to be correct prices? And then what? I mean, and do you just have to put what is the regulation? I don't know what the regulation is going to look like. Do you have to look at all the prices? I mean, you're telling me that a funeral home is going to charge. I mean, like I've seen funeral homes work with people, especially like in a tragedy, when like a family loses 3 or 4 people in an accident. Like, so you're setting them up to, well, you display these prices, and I mean, like it just creates problems because.
Does the federal government ever not create problems?
No, and all the lobbying organizations who are on behalf of the funeral homes are saying, you don't need to do anything else. Like the system is already working. And then you think about places like Southwest Georgia, like the 2nd Congressional District that is lacking internet so much. Where there's like or Wheeler County in Southeast Georgia, where people are still using a freaking satellite to access the internet. You're telling me that a funeral home that's never had a website must, by law, create a website and then update it so that no one can look at it?
Right.
And people could say, well, you could make a website for nothing. Well, that's not the point. The point is that they cannot make a website for nothing, and then they're just not having the government tell them what to do and tell them what to offer their customers, and telling customers what they have a basic right to know about a business.
Well, and, look, we're not talking about bait and switch or anything like that. And I don't know, man. I to tell a business they have to maintain a website in order with current and up-to-date pricing, it's not what it costs. It's these guys are morticians. They're not computer guys. I mean, yes, your average 6-year-old can set up a website for free, but I don't know how to. Mm-hmm. I can fix your air conditioner, but I can't. You tell me to set up a website? No idea. I pay people to do that. In fact, my website needs to be updated, and I need to pay somebody to do that because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. My laptop is a Facebook machine. That's about it. I use it as a word processor and a Facebook machine.
Right.
But this is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at thegeorgiavirtue.com. Whoo, Jessica, we got a good one for the meal of the week.
Yeah, the Air Force, the United States Air Force. So you know more about this particular part than I do, but I guess if somebody files for records on military service, there is a very limited amount of information that can be released for, I think, is it 62 years or something?
62 years, unless the service member or family member releases that information. So obviously, if you have had a now a deceased family member and you were the first in line, and they wanted information on them from Vietnam or something like that, the information that gets released, rank, dates, basic stuff that you would get with it. You're not going to get. In this case, it was a sexual harassment, assault.
Well, and the basic information is like what most people would need, like an employer wanting to verify, or if you're running for office, they could verify that you actually served, or things like that. Like an employer, I guess you could provide them the paperwork, but if somebody wanted to verify your service, that is something that the public can do without the need for anything else.
And this woman, who is a, I guess, retired lieutenant colonel,
Jennifer Ruth Green.
Yeah, Indiana, right?
I think so.
Running for, I think, Indiana's 1st district.
Yes.
If I recall correctly. She was at NTC, National Training Center, and they were training some Iraqis. And a member of the Iraqi army grabbed her and, I guess, exposed himself.
Grabbed her breasts. I mean, it's not like he grabbed her by the arm or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if I grab your arm. If
I understand, but that's the I think it's important to mention, just because that is the point of contention of the assault. I mean, yeah, it's inappropriate to expose yourself also, but he did grope her, from what I've read. And
her charge against the Air Force was she was told to keep it quiet. I actually believe her on that, because it did involve a U.S. service member. That they would have prosecuted in a heartbeat. But the fact that it was an Iraqi service member, so to speak, they tried to keep that kind of stuff under wraps, as not to offend our allies.
And this is literally, I mean, it's a recurring theme. Heck, we had huge investigations about covering up stuff, so I don't think there's any surprise. She also stated that it derailed her career. And interestingly, the reason I think it's more believable is that none of this has come out. She hasn't talked about it in her campaign. She hasn't talked about it publicly. And she's never said like, oh, I was targeted in the armed forces because I spoke out about this, or because I filed a complaint. Like she hasn't talked. It was definitely not the Me Too movement that we see in Hollywood.
Yeah, she didn't release this information. This information was
leaked.
Yeah, apparently leaked by mistake. If you were to ask somebody in the Air Force, or with the Department of the Air Force, this particular woman is running as a Republican.
She is, and you know what? I mean, I think the Air Force, we expect government to mess up. But she asked the Politico reporter who contacted her about the records and the story that they were working on. She asked them not to include it, and they did anyway. And I cannot think of anything more disgusting to do as a reporter.
She's a black female Republican. And, you know, as much as I hate identity politics, it's worth noting that this probably, especially the Politico, would not have run with it if she was running as a Democrat. Hell no. And I truly believe that. Absolutely. If this information, even if it was mistakenly released, and Politico called asking if she was running as Democrat, I said, look, I really don't want to talk about that. That's a chapter I put behind me. I'm looking forward. Can we not talk about it? It's a very painful subject. And they said, you know what, you're right, and buried it. And not burying it in a bad way, just, you know.
It's personal.
It is personal. And it's something that we protect victims of sexual assault. We protect them in court. We don't put their faces on TV. If a woman goes in to testify against her attacker, she is given as much anonymity as possible. We protect victims. And in this case, she was a victim. And for somebody to run with that story is repugnant. And like I said, if she was a black woman running as a Democrat, we never would have heard the story.
Yeah.
And now
and they would have honored her wishes.
Yeah, and now her face is going to be forever associated with that. And I don't think it hurts her politically or anything else, but the woman was assaulted. No touchy. Like you in the Army anyway, you can catch a sexual not assault but harassment claim at the drop of a hat if it's inter service. At the drop of a hat, a guy could have. Trust me, he wouldn't have even gotten that close as far as touching her before catching a charge.
Well, you're also re-victimized. Like and I mean that from the standpoint of like she shouldn't have to explain any of it. She shouldn't have to explain how it impacted her career. She shouldn't have to explain, if she shouldn't have, unless she wants to. It is no one's business. Right.
That's the absolutely the case, and I feel for her. I mean, there's no excuse for any man doing that, and the fact that she felt that she was being pressured into covering it up and just letting it go is disgusting. But I know that stuff happened,
and her opponent has not even said. This shouldn't have been released. He hasn't said anything.
He really should come out and say the reporting by the Politico was disgusting. I find it repugnant. I feel for all victims of sexual assault, and I believe that they should have their right to privacy in order to heal. Whatever. I'm sure given 5 minutes, I could craft a press release to go with it, but. He would come out so well, standing up and saying, that wasn't me, and I'm sorry it happened to you, and that wasn't right.
Well, any dumbass could come up with something better to say than nothing on a whim.
And I'm that dumbass.
Well, no, but I mean, you're saying you need 5 minutes. Like everything you've said right now is the right answer, which is, I'm sorry this happened. It's not a campaign issue. I'm sorry this happened to her and any other woman that is struggling with this. And I hope that we can get back to talking about the issues because it is not for the rest of us to discuss. Any variation of that would be sufficient, but nothing.
Yeah, it should have come out with it immediately. Because this is not a political issue, but from in a political lens, and I don't know Indiana's first district, I don't know, but when you make a candidate into a victim, it often has the reverse effect of what they're looking for. And if this is making as much buzz in district, that it could really come back to bite the Democrats on it because, there are certain things that are off limits.
Kids?
Including kids, yeah. Unless you're Trump, in which case they can make fun of Barron, when he was 14 years old or whatever he was.
Yeah. I mean, they crossed the line, but it's supposed to be off limits. And you do, I mean, what's I don't know. What is the argument? What do we say?
Well, here's the thing. If they get in the political arena, Laura Trump, for example, grown-ass adult, got in the political arena, she's fair game. Mm-hmm. Her sister, I can't remember what her name is, her sister, who is also adult but has stayed out of the political realm, off limits.
The blonde one?
Yeah, the blonde one, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean...
Yeah, Tiffany. Is it Tiffany?
Yeah, that sounds right.
All Tiffany's are crazy.
Leave private people alone. I mean, that's really... But we're
and-
so
and-
far
and-
gone. I mean, if we're talking
Yeah,
about sexual assaults, we're so far gone.
Exactly. And on the victim side. But that's okay. You and I don't have much longer to worry about. Americans apparently die younger in states with conservative policies.
I heard that. A study that came out recently, I don't know exactly when, but talking about healthcare in particular, of course. Lower mortality rates for liberal policies. They went across all 50 states from 1999 to 2019. So obviously COVID's not included. And they compared data on gun safety, labor, marijuana policy, economic taxes, and tobacco taxes. I mean, smoking is an interesting component to include in all of that. I didn't know that lower sin taxes would be considered. I mean, I guess that's a conservative policy. Like, that's wild to me that idea is partisan, that it's not just like American to have lower taxes, but whatever.
Man, this is again correlation. They cherry picked which factors they used.
Mm-hmm.
You give me a solution, and I'll give you a problem to match it. And that's kind of where they went from here. It seems like they cherry picked the ages, 25 to 64, and then they cherry picked which issues they were using because you can manipulate the numbers that way. Fact is, I think healthcare. I know from especially from talking to you, healthcare in rural areas is more difficult to get quality healthcare. So if you live in Manhattan and you need a cardiologist, there's probably 100 cardiologists within one block. If you live in Statesboro and you need a cardiologist, you have one within 20 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be 3 months to get in to see him.
Yeah. I mean,
but we take that all the way down the line. Cancer care, screenings, you take that all the way down the line with every different specialty, and rural areas tend to be more conservative. So states with more rural areas like Georgia have more conservative policies. That's just the way it is.
it is. It is the way it is. I don't know. It bothers me from the standpoint of, like, I guess the one thing I would at least concede is likely is marijuana policy, because, I mean, we know that even the low THC derivative oils are so helpful to all kinds of conditions and diseases and ailments, and we keep it from them. So that one I mean, and Republicans are, I mean, look at the access across states. Like, we are light years behind.
Well, yes. And I'd like to get Gravely on to talk about it. I know he's frustrated with the Georgia access to medical marijuana because we have none. It's legal, it's on the books, but it's held up in this quagmire. And I think by the time one bottle of oil is produced, it'll be so damn expensive no family can afford it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because government.
Well, for sure. And it's a mess. But they said that the average life expectancy right now is 78 years and for Americans, which is more than 5 years younger than Japanese people and more than 2 years younger than British people. But like, one thing that we're not considering is that Americans, I mean, everyone's life expectancy used to be lower.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
we're living longer, more healthy than ever before.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we're living longer and healthier than ever before. My parents are in their mid-70s, And my father still works. I don't. It's not because he has to. I don't think he knows what he'll do with himself when he does retire. Mm-hmm. But somebody being 75, 76 years old and still having a full-time job 20 years ago would be amazing. Wow. And today it's just not.
Yeah, we don't even balk at it.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you got Tom Brady at 45 years old still playing in the NFL. We're living longer, healthier lives. And that would have been a perfectly fine story to run with, but we don't make money with feel-good stories. We make money by cherry picking and running with a topic like if you live in a conservative state, you're going to die sooner. All right, Jess, is that a nipple in my cappuccino?
I don't know, but the poor baristas got a half-calf ruling recently about what is and is not an infringement on their rights when it comes to hussy clothes.
Yeah, this is a bikini barista place
in Washington, the state of Washington.
Yeah, I never really got the idea, but whatever. But they passed a law in 2017 prohibiting from quick service food and drink peddlers from showing off certain body parts, including stomachs, backs below their shoulder blades, and top 3 inches of the leg below the buttocks. First of all, if there's somebody who gets the job of taking those measurements, I want that damn job. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you go to a bikini barista, you know what you're getting.
And they said it was concerns. They did it over concerns for potential exploitation of women and adverse impacts upon minors. So question number 1 is, who's taking their kid to the bikini baristas? And is that a parental decision? And if so, then get the hell out of the way. And the second question is, are the women who are working at the bikini baristas, or at the bikini, whatever it is, are they being trafficked? If not, get the hell out of the way.
Yeah, that seems like a very convenient way. We're protecting the women by taking away their ability to make a living. Because I imagine that the guys who frequent establishments like this are pretty good tippers.
So the courts, obviously this was challenged like over and over and over. In 2017, a district judge said the city could not enforce the law as it was playing out, so they issued an injunction. The city appealed. Court of Appeals for the 9th District said the lower court was wrong and rejected the argument that the law violates the First Amendment right to free expression and lifted the injunction. So it's been back and forth. But in early October, a district judge ruled on the actual dress code and said it is unconstitutional because it violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution, but not their right to free speech.
It's an interesting sidestep there.
But creative, because in the past, stuff has been like the topless thing at the beach. Remember, there were arguments over whether or not that was expression, and I have not heard somebody say that, I mean, we've heard them say it in layman's terms, like, well, men can. Well, they're different body parts for different purposes. Like, a male breast is not equal to a female breast, but we've never heard. I
haven't found them to be, but
right. But we have not seen people. We've not seen it go to the extent of the Equal Protection Clause, which I found fascinating.
It is interesting. Man, I would just love for one court just one time smack a city down and go, not the role of government.
Right.
And it's interesting because they didn't, when they did this dress code, they didn't go after health and safety, because had they gone after health and safety, they probably could have gotten it through.
You think?
Oh, I think they would. if they put on that if you're working with liquids over 100 degrees, you'd have an apron on or something like that.
Okay, but if I were the restaurant owner, I would get servers to deliver the food and the girls to stand at the front and walk around without any food.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know who's going to this damn coffee house. If it works for them, great. I mean, I have no problem with it. I just don't know who the hell is overpaying for coffee so they can see some boobies in a bikini.
Right.
You understand? There's the internet. We have the internet now. You can literally find anything you want on the internet. I guess it's people who want to pretend that the stripper likes them.
Sure. The only thing I can say is I love anyone who will fight a city, go against a city, challenge a city, and so I'm thankful for their existence for that. I don't understand it either, obviously.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. Screw that city government. Absolutely. I was more talking about the customers. I'm like,
sure.
wow.
I'm with you there.
And so, but the fact that they exist, they found a market for it. I am 100% behind this business owner. God bless you. Make that city spend a bunch of money with their attorneys and have them lose. I can't believe the city wants to take it that far. They got smacked down by the Ninth Circus. Yeah. So they've already been smacked down by the Ninth. You should be done. If they continue to push this to go to SCOTUS, I mean, how much money is this little city going to spend protecting people from nothing?
I would quote Mean Girls and say the limit does not exist.
I mean, look, I don't care if they have a nude coffee house. I mean, it probably not the most hygienic thing in the world, but I don't care. You have the freedom of association. If you decide to go into a nude coffee house, that's whatever.
Assume the risk. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
As long as everyone's there voluntarily. Yes, we're running over. Goodbye.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
No.
I was going to say Taurus Morris, who's running for post 2 commissioner out here, I believe, made and I called her out on her Facebook, but made a unforced tactical error. She's running as a Democrat, and this is not the first time she's done stupid stuff like this when running for office. But she put up a picture of being backstage at a Stacey Abrams thing. And I put on her post and said, "There's no way on God's green earth Stacey Abrams polls Paulding County. Why would you do this? If you're actually interested in getting elected, why would you hitch your wagon to Stacey Abrams, who statewide is 8 points behind?"
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. My advice to anybody running for office is always run your own race.
Amen.
Is don't get yourself entangled with other people's races. Run your own. So, on that happy note, big thanks to Eric Cumbey, who's going to take this audio and turn it into something you can listen to. Jessica Salagemi, my partners in endeavor. I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.